to do abundantly. He's still able to do above all we can ever ask or think if we would just allow the power to work within us. God can still be trusted. And please, if you will allow me a minute, I want to ask you a question. Since when can God not be trusted? Since when have we not been able to depend on him? If you do, watch this. Y'all are still with me. Y'all are still with me. If you trust God, put it in the comments. I still trust him. This is the equivalent of being in church and the pastor telling you to tell your neighbor. I want you to put it in the comments. I still trust him. I want you to put it in the comments. I still trust him. I still trust him. Thank you who are watching and sharing the video, but I want you to put it in the comments. I still trust him. If you still trust God during this turbulent time, I want you to put in the comments, I still trust him. God is still trustworthy. He's still able. He has not lost his ability. He has not lost his authority. God is still trustworthy. He's still able to do exceedingly abundantly and above all we can ever ask according to the power that works in us. I still trust God. I want you to put it in the comments if you still trust him. Just say, I still trust him. Amen. I'm going through a tough time right now, but I still trust that he's able. And because I know he's able, I still praise him. I still walk with him. I still talk with him because I know that he's able. Watch this, okay? If you do an extensive reading in the Old Testament, if you do an extensive reading in the Old Testament of the Bible, right? We don't read that too much, but if you do extensive reading, studying, and research in the Old Testament of the Bible, you will see multiple times where God allowed Israel, his chosen people, to be turned over into the hands of their enemies. If you do an extensive reading in the Old Testament, you will see, I'm going to say this again, you will see multiple times where God allowed Israel, his chosen people, to be turned over into the hands of their enemies because of their consistent disobedience, because they're consistent going against his will, because of their consistent refusal to turn away from their wickedness and turn to him. So God turned them over into the hands of their enemies. Go in your own time, in your study time, go and read that. Go study the book of Judges where you will see God has consistently turned Israel over into the hands of their enemy. But watch this. Watch this. But when the people repented, when the people turned back to God, God raised up a judge and delivered his people from wherever they were. Every single time that the people repented and they turned away from their wickedness, God raised up somebody and he brought them out. He brought them out. And I want to show you something because we give Donald Trump too much credit. We give the government too much credit and we act as if though God has lost control of America. And that is not the truth. I want you to know that if God, let me tell you something. This is something that my mentor taught me and I've held on to it ever since. My mentor taught me that if God wanted to stop it, he would have. And he certainly could have. But considering that he permitted it to happen, then evidently it has got to be a part of his plan. There's nothing that happens in your life and in this world outside of God's permission. So I want you to understand that everything you see on the news and everything that you don't see, God signed off on it before it happened. If you don't believe me, go read the book of Job. The devil told God said, have you considered my servant Job? The devil said, yes, I considered him, but I couldn't get to him because you got a hedge around him. You stopped me from getting to him. Then God himself raised the head and he told the enemy, you can touch everything that he has, but don't touch him. So I want you to know that everything you're going through right now, everything you're dealing with right now, none of it could happen to you outside of the will of God or the permission of God. I want you to know nothing can happen in this world that God didn't permit. We give Donald Trump, we give the government way too much credit because what the government, we feel like they're in control of everything. But I want you to know that the government is not in control, but God is in control. The government is not in charge, but God is in charge. Everything that has happened to you in your life, God had a reason for it. I told the story of my friend, and I'll tell it again. A guy I grew up with, he got in a car accident. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. He's no longer with us. He died from another sickness. But he got into a car accident. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't believe that my friend, the person I played basketball with and football with, was in that kind of situation. So I went to the hospital and I was sad when I saw him, but he had a smile on his face. And I tried to understand. I said, how is it that you're smiling at a time like this? He told me, because God gave me a wheelchair instead of a seat in hell. He understood that if he was going to die, God could have killed him there, but God allowed him to sit in a wheelchair instead of opening his eyes in hell. And there's a whole lot of us that we're praying about God to bring us out of this situation. But the truth be told, we had some plans before COVID-19 that would have destroyed our life. So God had to put us in quarantine to get us to open our eyes. God had to put us in a situation to cause us to open our eyes. And so now, when the people of God repented, when they turned back to God, God gave them another chance. And I want everybody listening to me and everybody in America to know that we don't serve a God of a second chance. We serve the God of another chance. Me and you both, we ruined our second chance a long time ago. We serve God. We serve the God of another chance. Watch what happens. Watch what happens in the Bible. In the Bible. Because we're after government. Everything that happens, we're after the government. We want the government to understand, which I understand. I'm with you in that fight, but I want you to understand that the government only has so much control. When you truly believe in God, you understand that nothing happens to me outside of the will of God. I don't care who the president is. He can't touch me unless God allows him to do it. Nothing he does can bother with me unless God allows him to do it. I don't care that there are racist police officers. If they can't put their hands on me unless God allows it to be done. This is why David said in Psalms 23, he said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. David understands that the shepherd is in control of the sheep in his pasture. David understood that it's time for me and you to understand that. But watch something interesting I found in Proverbs 29:2. The Bible said, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. I want you to hear that again. Proverbs 29:2. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. That ought to help you understand what's going on in Washington, D.C. and around the world. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan.